All right, what's up? I'm actually watching some Wednesday night fights on Showtime. Boca Chica versus Reyes. It'll probably be off by the time I post this video, but boy, I tell you, Josh Warrington took the kind of beating that can ruin a fighter. Could I call it a Jeff Lacy type of beating? Yeah, maybe, maybe not, but the effects of it could be similar. I mean, it wasn't the speed punches like Calzaghe, but I tell you what, if you laid something down on Mauricio Lara, $100 might have got you close to $1,000 in some places. Brutal fight. So now Team Gary Russell Jr., official members and unofficial members, you can stop complaining. You were upset Warrington was rated the number one featherweight in the world. And so now he doesn't have that ranking. And even though some polls might have Gary Russell Jr., they'll move him to the number one spot. Many other polls will probably put Emmanuel Navarrete in there at number one. So I'm sure when Gary takes a look at those polls, he'll get on social media and talk about how the entire world is against him. The thought coming into that fight was Mauricio was taking too big of a step in class. And it turns out he wasn't. Now, if you want to give Warrington an excuse, it can be inactivity. Because he didn't fight. He was off close to a year and a half. And we find out that's not good for some boxers. Especially those who want to be active, who want to fight 4, 5, 6 times a year. Also, you know what? I'll build in another excuse for Warrington. Because I've stated it since April of last year. There will continue to be more upsets in the bubble than you can count. And this was a huge one. Another excuse, and look, I don't mind valid excuses, okay? And another valid excuse is for some fighters is fighting with no crowd or a very limited size crowd. You have to really maintain your discipline as a fighter, especially if you're a guy who's a favorite fighting someone with nothing to lose. And we found that to happen. In this fight, Warrington tried to be the boss early. But this wasn't Patrick Hyland he was in there with, all right? Lara came in with 14 knockouts in 23 fights, including 6 out of his past 7 fights with a no contest in between. And so at age 30, Warrington, he's going to have to see, we have to see where he's going to go. Okay. This was Warrington was the IBF champion, but I'm not sure what happened because this wasn't a title fight. And so I know he was supposed to fight a rematch with Kid Galahad. And since he didn't do it and chose to fight Mauricio, maybe the IBF stripped him for taking that. I'm not sure. But if I'm Mauricio, I'm demanding the Galahad fight or whoever is next in line for the vacant belt, for sure. I'm asking for that. let's move on. Jojo Diaz. Kid has some soul searching to do. First of all, Jojo, he was out there living that pandemic life. You know what I mean? He came in 3 pounds over. And that, hey, if you're a pound over, pound and a half, something like that. But 3 pounds over and you know something's up. Something seems off there. And then he fought like a guy who didn't make weight. Had to kind of settle for a draw with Shavkat Rakhimov. Excuse me. Goodness. Rakhimov. Well, Jojo had he had just reading online, he's come up with every excuse in the book about the place not having a sauna and then being confined in his room, having to use a heater instead of being able to drop weight by other methods. He also said the place only had a treadmill. So Jojo, he's just always been a little off. He's also approaching the 30-year-old mark, like 28, 29. And so he has to decide if he's going to work to make 130 pounds or take it up a weight class. And while I thought he had more in the tank to take it to Gary Russell Jr. when they fought a couple of years ago, and then I see him struggle to make weight now while Russell can still make 126 pounds, then maybe I get a better understanding on why he didn't empty the tank against Gary Russell Jr. a couple of years ago. Maybe he didn't feel he had enough in there. Because we're talking, Russell's older, and he's still, and fights once per year, but he can still make that 126. And so for Diaz to struggle to make the weight, and we don't know. There's some speculation, different stories out there. We don't know why. But I don't know. So for him, if the fight is to make 130 or 135, then maybe he can fight a Gervonta Davis, who does the same thing, floats between the weights. I just don't know what Diaz's next move is. And although his struggle seems physical, I have to wonder where the kid's mind is at. It's just always been a bit of a question with him. So for Rakhimov, he's still young at 26. And if he can't get a Diaz rematch, which I'm sure Jojo, I don't think he's going to be too keen on, I'd advise what I recommended for Mauricio. Rakhimov should demand to fight someone for the belt Diaz was stripped of. I mean, why not? He's in the U.S. and trained by Freddie Roach, and he fought to a draw with the top 5 guy. So he should make his case to fight for a vacant belt. Because the fight with Diaz was, he was the only one eligible to win the title. So, or Diaz got stripped, so He had it, but he didn't have a chance to defend it. So we'll see where Rakhimov goes, but most of the boxing world will wait to see where Diaz goes. So we'll see where he goes next. What else? I don't follow boxing, women's boxing, but not too tough. But has anyone seen the bad blood between Jessica McCaskill and Cecilia Brækhus? So those two don't like each other. But Cecilia had to G-check Jessica the other day once McCaskill started questioning her accomplishments, and rightfully so. Like, if there's one woman whose accomplishments you cannot question, it's Cecilia. That I know. And then, to make matters a little worse, there's been this back and forth as the weight bully herself, Claressa Shields, pretty much told both of them how little she felt about them. So Shields continues to show the world how classless her and her family are, and there seems to be no end in sight. I'll leave it at that. Most of you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I hope Brækhus and McCaskill give us a treat as good as or better than their first fight. Okay? They will fight for the World Boxing Association, the World Boxing Council, the International Boxing Federation, the World Boxing Organization, and the International Boxing Organization World Female Welterweight titles. It's a mouthful, right? So that's like all the marbles. First fight was heated up late. It was a good fight, and so we'll see. And just as it really, really heated up, you forget that there are 2-minute rounds, and you look up and it's like, oh man, the fight's over. So we'll see. So they'll fight on the undercard. I think that's on the undercard of is that the Chocolatito? That's going to have fans. That's at the Alamo Dome. I think they're part of that Alamo Dome card. The tickets are on sale now. Good prices too. So I don't know. On a good day, I might fly out to something like that. But anyway. All right. Coming up, Saturday afternoon, The Zone has a card headlined with Josh Kelly taking on David Avanesian. And now this is a good fight to see where Kelly is. All right, because Kelly had a scare a couple of fights ago, and he was lucky. He was very fortunate to receive a draw against Ray Robinson. So check this fight out Saturday afternoon. We got a big Saturday. All right. And then live on ESPN, we have a fight that on paper has the potential to be a great one. Okay, the main card will be on ESPN at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. The other fights start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. All right. And I like how Top Rank does the ESPN Plus fights. They just roll them out. I mean, one fight ends, they'll spray the ring down or what have you and just roll the next one out. And their announcing teams are pretty decent. Well, they mix it up a little bit, but generally the announcing team does good. But they I like how they do it. They try to stack the card up and just roll one fight in right after the other. And then the main card. If you don't tune into this fight on free TV, or I'll say basic cable, this Saturday, I'm not sure what kind of boxing fan you are. Put the kids to sleep. Tell the wife to take a hike. Get some food and get yourself together. It's Mexico versus Mexico. World Boxing Council, World Super Featherweight, or Junior Lightweight champion, the King. Miguel Berchelt, 37 wins, 1 loss, 33 knockouts, takes on Oscar Valdez, 28-0, 22 knockouts. Folks, it doesn't get better than this. Okay, Valdez. We saw him last fight, Jason Velez last year. And he dropped Velez a few times and got him out late. Action fight. But the fight most people remember for Valdez was the brutal battle with Scott Quigg, okay? So Quigg didn't make weight. So if he won, he wouldn't have won Valdez's title. So early in the fight, Quigg broke Oscar's jaw and knocked some teeth out. And then you remember how Oscar's jaw looked, right? And then for how bad his jaw was, do you recall? If I find a copy of the fight, I'll leave it below. Do you recall the horrible shape Quigg's nose was in? I mean, it was broken, the nose, and then he also had a bad cut. So if I remember, there should be a picture of his nose and Quigg's and Valdez's jaw as I'm talking. If I remember to post it, if not, I'll look for a picture of both to put below this video. Quigg's nose, man, it looked unfixable, man. I'm telling you. All right, so Valdez. Now, for the King, Berchelt, the King. His last fight was under some weird circumstances. It was in Mexico, and he got a knockout in the middle of the fight, and he won. Okay, all good. I remember this because during the fights, they kept showing these huge, big screen videos of fans and pictures of the fighters as they're fighting, but the placement was very distracting for viewers watching on television. So it certainly had to catch the fighters' eyes. I'm sitting there like, man, this is, somebody went all out here, man. But it's distracting. Then they had these giant words on the screen with ads appearing also. I mean, it was I think it was the ESPN Plus card, because at first they weren't going to, like, nobody was going to pick it up. And they said, well, wait a minute, this is the King. We got to put Berchelt on TV. So it was a tune-up fight, but the guy he fought, he came to dance, you know what I mean? So he didn't lay down. So it was a nice workout for Berchelt. And so now we're here this Saturday, the showdown. Folks, this should be a good fight. On paper, for sure. Now, to me, there are two factors that can make the fight go differently and make it go from great to good or good to great. And it comes down to the trainers. Okay? First of all, I received word the other day that Berchelt's trainer was, I'm sure it's out there in the news by now, Berchelt's trainer is having some visa problems. And now, if he can't make it, how does that affect Miguel? Maybe not too much, because the King knows what he's doing in there, but you never know. What we don't know is if Valdez changing trainers will pay dividends here, okay? Oscar has retained the services of arguably the hottest trainer in boxing right now. one Eddie Reynoso. Okay, Reynoso has Saul Alvarez, Ryan Garcia, Andy Ruiz Jr., and Valdez. He's also coached Luis Neri and Oscar Larios, just to name some guys. Neri just left him and is looking for a new trainer. Not sure what happened there. It might be a time dedication thing with all those big names. Neri might have been told, hey, we got to cut your hours, son. So, the question, and this may have a lot to do with this being a very good fight as opposed to just a great fight. Like a decade defining, like a top 10 fight. So the question is, will Valdez attempt a different style than we are accustomed to seeing? Usually Oscar comes forward and swings shots like a madman. You know what I mean? Caution to the wind. Just nonstop pressure and output. Which is kind of like what Berchelt is probably looking for, hoping for. In that fight with Quigg, with a broken jaw, he threw almost 1,000 punches against Quigg with that broken jaw. So how will he come out against Berchelt? My guess is that, well, listen, even if he abandons his reckless style and tries something different, this fight, man, I hope I don't eat these words. This fight is a can't miss as far as entertainment. Because I got some friends who only watch, like they'll watch Tyson versus Jones, Jones Jr., you know what I mean? They'll watch Pacquiao when taking on Mayweather Jr. But I told them, look, and then they're always disappointed. Man, I thought Mike was going to do this. Oh, I thought the Pacquiao fight was going to be better. So I told them, watch this. I'm going to see if they watch it, but I'm hoping I don't let them down. So, Berchelt, Valdez, don't let me down, or I won't stop hearing it from people I know. The only thing is, if it ends in a very early knockout or an injury of some sort, it may not be can't miss, but even an early knockout can qualify as can't miss if it goes a certain way. I think I don't think it's a distance fight. We may see multiple knockdowns, but I think it'll end in a knockout for sure. So maybe Valdez comes out and at least tries a more controlled approach. But once Berchelt goes on the offensive, we could be in for something special because Oscar is going to join him in the fireworks. That's just who he is. Like, they may try to have him do something differently, but we'll see. We'll see. Also on the card is Gabriel Flores Jr. stepping up to face the aforementioned Jason Velez. We've got undefeated Brazilian hard hitter Esquiva Falcoa. And then we have the guitar man, Elvis Rodriguez. Let's hope he gets another knockout so he can play that imaginary guitar. People are very, very high on this prospect. So Elvis, I need you to do your thing. Also on Saturday is the return of Adrien Broner. Okay, this is showtime. It's been over 2 years, and although I wish I could talk about what's going on with Broner, I can't do it on YouTube. He has trouble to deal with, and I can't comment on it here. But anyway, he's fighting a guy in Giovanni Santiago. Now, Santiago's 14-0-1 with 10 knockouts. All right. He's one of these guys who's never fought in the United States. And the only name that rings bells on his resume was like a 42, 43 years old DeMarcus Corley. Okay. And he won a close 10-round decision against Chop a little while back. So, on paper, this should be an opponent with a decent record that'll go between 6 and 10 rounds with Adrien. Give him some work. It's something on the resume that, like I said, has a nice record. But sometimes the paper lies. I'm not saying it does here, but sometimes a guy comes to the party and can get on the dance floor and boogie all night. Will Santiago be able to do it? Odds are he won't. When I watch film, though, this guy has some power. But then again, it's against inferior guys. And so we'll see. But if you usually see knockout guys you've never heard of, and then they come to the States, the power usually doesn't completely translate all the time. So it's like, oh, okay, you're knocking all these bums out in Colombia or wherever. He's not Colombian, but just using that as an example. But and then you get over here and you can crack a little bit, but it's like, these guys are walking through your punches. So we'll see. Now, I will say a few things that work to Santiago's advantage. First of all, Broner has been off for over 2 years. That's not good. Some fighters it's okay with. Other fighters like a Golovkin, like a Lomachenko, maybe like a Broner. That's not good. They need to be active. Secondly, Santiago, although he's coming into the U.S. for the first time in a huge fight, he won't have to worry about a bunch of fans in the arena and how you're overwhelmed by that and you get this tunnel vision and you just can't. You're just too overwhelmed with it. So, and it's intimidating, but he won't have to worry about it. Also, mentally, we don't know where Broner is. We just don't. I can't tell you about things I know, but it's a legitimate focus point for this guy. So, and then lastly, we know Adrien Broner blows up between fights, right? Well, I've watched this Santiago guy and many of his knockouts, I would say most of them, come to the body. And he loves to punch hard to the body. So if Broner is soft at all downstairs, maybe this kid hurts him. It's a big maybe, but I'd like to see him get his best punch off to see how Broner handles it. I really would. Also on the card are two interesting matchups. First, you got the Easter Bunny, Robert Easter Jr. He takes on Ryan Blue Chip Martin. Blue Chip is a good fighter. And he's coming back. He's coming off of his first loss. And he wants to let people know that he's a better fighter than that. So Easter Jr., he has the measurables. He's just a tall guy with reach and everything. So he better be on his A game. Because if Ryan's on his A game, good fight, good matchup. And then the co-feature has Otto Valin, the uncrowned champion, versus Dominique Breazeale. Good fight. We'll see. So these are good cards, at least from name value. You know what I mean? Of course, I'm sure some people will want to watch certain fights on both channels, and then they'll come on simultaneously, and they're like, "Oh man, which one?" Like, here's the one I wanted to watch on this channel. Here's the one I want to watch on that channel, man. So, hey, folks, those are the breaks. Flip a coin. We'll catch you on the next one.